I'd like to take just a few minutes to show you what I've been doing with creating some strategies, indicators and strategies. I've kind of moved more to creating strategies using AI, uh, mostly because I can integrate triggers to enter and exit trades, whereas with the indicators by themselves, I, can't, I don't know how to do that. I don't know that it can be done. So you're looking at a strategy here that I've created, I guess actually yesterday morning, I think it was. And this is the hour chart. And it seemed to me over the years that anybody that's survived in the world of trading has gravitated towards trading higher time frame charts. You'll hear David in the accelerated program mention that he trades the 1 hour chart based on its structure, but then he drops down to the faster charts for maybe a more precise entry. But far less noise on the 1 hour chart. And just want to show you what I put together here. This is on the chart. First of all, these lines are created by the strategy, and I do believe in using the daily, weekly, and monthly average. And I show that on this chart. The daily, those higher time frame filters are in the dotted lines. So the red, if you think of the U.S. red, white, and blue, especially this Memorial Day weekend, the red is the daily, the white is the weekly, the blue is the monthly. And you can see how just the other recently it came down and tapped the monthly and then promptly reversed up with a nice V reversal pattern, which I love to see the reversal patterns together with a mitigated fair value gap as you see here. There's not so much of a V recovery here, but we do again have the mitigated fair value gap on the way to the upside. So we've got that as a filter, the 1 day, 1 week, or I should say the day, the week, and the monthly. So I want to see them properly stacked and also sloping upwards or at least neutral, no downward slopes on any of those three. And then the other thing that I have is and this is the reason I call this strategy 921, meaning the 9 EMA crossing the 21 EMA. Now that's the green is the 9 and the yellow is the 21. So you can see here that we had an entry signal right at this point. We had all of our daily, weekly, and monthly are stacked properly, slope plot properly, and we have the crossover the 9 over the 21, and that would give us a qualified entry. And you see that my strategy plots will plot the entry, which is right here. I can remove these labels, but for the sake of this video, I wanted to show you what they were. So there would be the entry, and then I have a hard stop set at the on a long entry, a hard stop set at the low of the signal candle, which is right here. You can see the arrow right there. Here's our hard stop right there. Now I can disengage that. I can disable that if I'd prefer not to. But in addition to that, I have what I call a disaster stop right here. And I can set that to right now I'm using a percentage of the account size, and this is based on a simulated account. But you can see the disaster stop. Now, where would that be helpful? That would be a help if this happened to be a big candle, signal candle, where the stop would be let's say this candle was way down here, and our entry was still here, but it was a big candle down here. Well, our hard stop would be down here, which would be exceeding maybe what we'd want to risk on a trade. So I have a disaster stop, what I call a disaster stop. And I think I have that, and I'll show you here in a minute. I think that's set at a 2% of account. So you can see here that the hard stop at the bottom of the signal candle is less of a risk than the disaster. So the disaster stop in this case wouldn't be a factor because price would be stopped out before it would get to that by virtue of the hard stop. Same thing over here. Here's the entry candle. Here's the entry line right here. And the hard stop is at the bottom of the signal candle. And here's the disaster stop. So again, you can see that the disaster stop would not be relevant. And then you can see that we have a partial target, and we can set that any number of contracts removed off the trade once it hits the target for the partial target, and then the ultimate target is up here. You can see my associate in the background barking, right? It must be close to 11. Yep, 11 o'clock is time for his lunch. So that's how I have that set up. You can see, you might say, boy, there's a lot of money left on the table here. Well, you know, this is a micro contract. I have 10 micros, so it's equivalent to 1 mini, and it's still. You can see down here I have the unrealized and realized profit, and total down here it's about $6,000, and that is based on that will tabulate the profit based on how many days back we went. So this is going back 21 days. So that's $6,000 profit over 21-day period, a month, let's say. So using micros, that's not too shabby. And I suppose if you were to switch to minis, then that would be a boatload of profits in that case. But you're also taking more risk. So let me show you how I've got this set up. You can see I'm going into strategies here, right? Oh, by the way, before I go into strategies, let me show you how this performance, and maybe some of you aren't aware of this who use a NinjaTrader. If you go down, if you've got a strategy loaded up and it has a trigger mechanism to get you in and out of trades, you should be able to see a performance report. And I'm going to click on historical. And you can see that it gives us a great report on that, what is it, $5,974, and you can see it's right up there. And it shows you there's only 2 trades, so it's a 100% win. And you can see that the average maximum adverse excursion was $400 versus $3,000 for favorable excursions, so that's a good number. And we can see, if we look at the analysis chart, there's only 2 trades, so that doesn't show much variation in the chart, right? And here are the trades itself. So this is a nice tool within NinjaTrader to be able to look back on your performance on the chart, and you can go in and change the settings for the strategy, and then go back in and build that same performance report I just showed you, and see the impact going back to those 21 days. So let's go in and take a look at the strategy right here. As I say, this is something I built in. I use Claude, and it took me. There were a number of iterations, some to correct errors in the coding, and also some just to add additional features. But just to walk you down here and show you how rich this can be. Hold on just a second. I gotta silence my dog. She's gonna keep barking, but that's not too much of a bother. So here we have our, this is a 921. There's a 9 EMA, our fast, and the slow is a 21. You can choose between different moving averages to include the SMA, HMA, and WMA, but I've found through my testing that the EMA does best. The appearance of those 2 moving averages, and then entry arrows, you've seen the green, and then, well, I don't see a red because there's no shorts on this trade. And then what do we have? Enable the longs and shorts. So you can turn one of these two off if you think it's significantly biased to the upside. You can turn your shorts off just as you can on these little buttons down here that's on the chart, which is more accessible than opening up these parameters. And then position sizing. How many contracts do you want to use? I use 10 micros, which is equal to the 1 mini. And then I said, do I want to enable the initial stop? And I said yes. Now remember, that initial stop is at the bottom of the signal candle, and it's right here. You can see the entry right. I'm sorry. The stop is at the bottom of the signal candle right here. You see this goldish dashed line. Stop. That's the one that you can enable or disable. And then the disaster stop is that right here. I have that set to 2% of the account size. And then the profit target I've set to 3 times the account size, which takes you up to this green line. And then how about a partial close? How about if we want to take a certain number of contracts off once it hits a certain percentage of the target, profit target? So I chose 8 out of 10 to be taken off once 50% of the target has been reached. So you can see here's entry, here's the ultimate target, but here's halfway, 50%. That's where we would have taken 8 micro contracts off. And then what happens, it doesn't show here, but what happens is the stop moves to break even, so we can't go in the red at that point. What else we have here? This is just a panel. This is just configuring the look of this realized profit and an unrealized profit. And then the levels, these are the different parameters for the levels. And this is labels, whether we want to show labels. And then this is the trend filter. This is where, for example, this is a 1-hour chart, so I've got my fast, medium, and slow. That represents daily, weekly, and monthly. And what I also did is I had Claude create for me in Excel. This is all done by Claude. You can see it's over here. This is the conversation I had with Claude. And that tells me here's the daily, weekly, and monthly. What do I need to set my moving averages to represent the daily, weekly, monthly? So you can say for a 15-minute chart, I need the daily is a 26 EMA. For the weekly, it's 130 EMA period, and for the monthly, it's 546. So if I put these numbers into this space right here, that's going to give me the trend filter that you see with the red, white, and blue dashed lines there. And I've found those to be, it's going to reduce the number of trades you take, but I really find that really reveals the bias in a very helpful, accurate way. And then this is again setting the look of those trend filters, and I think that's it. The rest is pretty much standard as we go. So that's and that's all created within moments. And I've got to tell you, it's this AI for us traders who have just hungered for a ability to translate our thinking into actionable tools. It's a game stopper, and I think I've built over 30, probably 35 indicators over the last month as I practice and experiment putting my thinking, the way I understand price action from 22 years. I think I've been doing this onto the screens, and it really is a game changer for sure. And I should point out that I think I already mentioned. You see here that we're also including the SMC concepts. Here we have a little bit of a sweep of liquidity. You can see this is lower than right here. I don't know do we get much over here. We had. I guess if here's a pivot right there, so there's to some degree there's a sweep of liquidity, but it's also if you're looking for what's driving price, of course, we can drive price from fair value gaps or from swing highs, swing lows, pivots. And this is actually a pivot here. You can see that this low is lower than the low of this and that, and this high is higher than that high, as is this high. So that's a well-qualified pivot, as by the traditional definition of a pivot. So that would be a source of driving some price as well. But I think that there's this monthly moving average that is a source to drive that price. At least that's my view of it. So when we got that mitigation of this bearish fair value gap, that was just an additional confirmation that we've got something that's likely to see its way up to the up north. By the way, you can see the price came down here, probably came down looking for the discount area. If we just take our fib tool right there and stick this up right about there for that high, you can see that there it is. It comes down and just wants to just touch this below 50 level to get into the discount before a reversal up. So this would have been a beautiful additional entry right here. And again, we have a qualified pivot. You can see this low is lower than that low, this low is lower than that low, this high is lower than that high, and it's also lower than that high. So that's what I wanted to show you. I don't think there's anything else. It's already long enough video, but it gives you an idea of what I've been doing and what anybody really with a little practice could do on their own, as long as you've got good experience behind this creation of these indicators and strategies. You have to first know how to read price and then go ahead and put your thoughts into some actionable tool. So that's it for now. We'll be speaking to you again soon.